We're off.
Are you gonna talk to them? Did you need to talk to them?
Nope, we're good. We're live.
All right, we're ready.
Just to clarify. All right, welcome to our interview panel for young people. Thank you to the folks who are participating in this via live stream. We're going to get started.
Timer. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Ms. Stokes. We're all really glad that you could be with us today. Thank you. Hope to learn more about you and your experiences. Hope to ask approximately questions within the next 30 minutes. So please plan for approximately 4 to 5 minutes for each question. Now, let's start with the introduction of our panelists. I am Zijan, and I am a sophomore from Madison West High School.
I'm from Bell Phillips, Carolina. I'm Raya, and I'm in ninth grade, and I'm Jay. I'm a junior from East High School.
Anna, and I'm a junior at East High School.
I'm a freshman at Bell Phillips Memorial.
Brandon, and I'm a sophomore at West High School.
My name is Zeke, and I'm a freshman at fall.
I'm a junior at Madison West High School. And I was at Norfolk.
I'm Aiden, and I am a junior at Madison West High School.
Strata, and I'm a junior from the body.
Would you like to move to the first question?
So student voice is often overlooked and tokenized in educational settings. As superintendent, it is really important to have an innate desire to consistently listen to students and learn from their experiences. Provide an example of how you have engaged with students face-to-face in the past to ensure that the student voice is properly represented and reflective of the diverse student population. How will you plan to directly involve students in important decisions and discussions?
That's a wonderful question because we know at the heart of every school is our students, and your voice does matter.
What I have done and would plan to continue to do is I always have what I call a Superintendent Student Advisory Group, or SAG, as some have given it a short name. What that means, and I've done this two different ways, is that I meet with a select group of students that's a diverse representation of our district. And by diverse, I mean in every subgroup, ethnicity, race, culture. It's a diverse group of students, and we would typically meet once a month to talk about topics that were predetermined by you in terms of what you wanted to learn more about. For example, food service, you wanted to understand why we have to have certain things on our menus. So when we would come and I would bring district leaders to talk with you about those particular things or those particular subjects that were important to you, school culture, climate, things of that nature. In addition, I also would go and meet with you in individual buildings, because what we found out is that while I had district level meetings, many of the students felt like it would be more personable and more important to meet at each building, because we all know your culture is different at each building. So then I began to have sessions at each of the buildings where there again, a section of student voice being heard, people who represent the students in their building. And we would meet usually for like breakfast time, and we would talk about things that were important to you. And it's not a bribe session. It's really a session where we could listen and come up with ways. You guys are so bright to come up with ways that we could increase activity or resources in our buildings. For example, one of the things that we talked about in having these building-based meetings was that just in certain hallway routes or ways that you go around and like, oh, I just avoid that area. Nobody can get through at that area at that time. We would talk about things that were really important to you, and you helped us come up with ways to make life in the school more manageable. Another example I will give you is lunch. We talked about why you eat or don't eat lunch at certain times, and why don't we have certain offerings. We would have food service talk about the rules. There are federal guidelines around food and things of that nature, but we were able to create menus and ways to make the lines go faster based on information you gave us, so that it was more meaningful for you and that you can get the food to nourish your body so that you can learn. So those are some of the ways is that I want to have sessions with you on a routine basis to meet your needs and hear from you.
Thank you very much for your response. Question 2 is that Madison has had for a very long largest achievement gaps in the state, as well as in the past couple of decades. Students, we have also noticed a significant achievement gap within our schools. And in order to rectify this, real systemic change is needed. Please share a specific example of how you have effectively worked to narrow the achievement gaps within your school.
Thank you there again. This is definitely something we see not just here in Madison, but probably across many school districts across the United States. I would say whenever we start talking about closing the achievement gap for students, we have to message what those gaps are and what we believe might be indicators as to why those gaps are existing. And in order to do that, we want to have to look at the individualized boots on the ground work that we provide for our diverse students in each building. Every building is different. Therefore, the needs in every building is different. But while the buildings are different and the needs are different, there are some research best practices and some what I call action research practices that help us understand that if we provide these particular supports for specific groups of students, they actually have better gains and better outcomes. Many of you know that in my background, I've been a director of special education, or what we call exceptional learners, and I've also been a teacher for students with exceptional needs. To be honest, exceptional needs runs across the gamut of all our students. You don't have to be identified as a student with exceptional learning needs, or a student who's an English language learner, or a student who's considered gifted or advanced. The reality is that there are good instructional practices that support our students. But what it means is that we have to go into each building, look at the whites of the eyes. Who are our students? What are their needs? What are we learning? We need to collaborate with our community, with our parents, and with you to talk about how can we move you from this level of proficiency to another level. Now, we all know there are state requirements around what we expect at each grade level. But we want to know what it takes for you to catch up, keep up, and move up when it comes to your learning. And who better than to tell us that is you? We also know that there are cultural norms that help you better understand subject matter. So we want to hear from you. What are some ways that we can engage you in the learning? I hear from students all the time talk about, oh, well, it's just not exciting to me. It's not interesting. Well, there are many ways we can teach you standards, but if you can give us ways that are more interesting to you, you'll be more vested, as long as we are actually supporting you in all your varied needs. So that entails also having supports around mental health, supports around behavioral concerns, helping you regulate your emotions. All of those things play into you being a good steward of your time. But it's not only your responsibility. We are charged as leaders with helping you. And we are charged with leaders as also making sure your parents understand ways that we can collaboratively support you. So in short, while that was long, we have to look at each individual building based on the needs of the students who are in that building. And while there will be some systematic things we do, we need to tailor those systematic things to a building-based approach.
So a question for each class. In order to build an effective representation, superintendent would have to bridge racial, cultural, and economic divide. Please share how you have approached multiple groups on a large scale and built a coalition to achieve positive outcomes for all students.
I think that with any culture, lingual, or economic concern in our district, it all comes back to families and resources. What is it that we need in our communities to support our children, to support our families, and so that we can keep the main thing in our schoolhouse, which is teaching. That's multifaceted, because that means we have to find those supports in our community that help you with everything for the whole child: mental health, social emotional learning, academic learning. If you're behind, ways to help you catch up. So I say all that to say this: we need to collaborate with you and our community members on a holistic basis, meaning there needs to be across the district where we talk about the needs of the district as a whole, but we also have to have building-based community type meetings where we talk about needs of a specific area or building. For example, I'm sure many of you know that in some communities there may be what we call food deserts, and that doesn't mean there's no food. It just means sometimes that the access to the food is not as easy. We know in some communities there may be other needs and challenges. So we really need to make sure, while we're looking at the district as a whole, that we're also looking at the district from the perspective of a building-based community. And within those communities, we need to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the individual stakeholders in the community. We may have communities where we have English language learners, not just the children, but the parents. And so we need to make sure that in each of our communities, we're looking at what's needed. How do we support parents in supporting their children? And therefore, we bring that into the schoolhouse and we're able to more efficiently support and meet your needs.
Question 4 says, each student in school is unique and requires different sources to how have you balanced the learning needs of student groups such as English language learning, and advice? How can students work with the district to ensure the diverse needs of all students are met?
So you're speaking specifically about English language learners and advanced learners. I would put with that question also students who are exceptional learners, or what some call students with disabilities, but we will say students with exceptional needs. With that being said, we have to make sure that our buildings have a strategic mode of operation, meaning how you set up courses and timing, where we protect core instruction. And what I mean by core instruction is math, science, social studies, reading. All subjects, art, music, they're all important, but the core instruction has to be protected in terms of we don't want to be pulling our students out at a time when they should be in front of their teacher. I say that those times we need to be pushing more staff in to make sure that if a child is having issues with behavioral needs, we can have a behavioral specialist come into the environment where they're actually having the issues, and then we can learn more so that when we pull the student out for small groups, we can do more. To help our students who are English language learners specifically, we need to make sure that, like our WIDA, our world-class instructional design and assessments, make sure not just our teachers, but that our building leaders and our parents, make sure they understand what do we mean when we talk about work that's acceptable at a certain proficiency level. If a child has a level 1 experience with English, the English language, their level at 5 is different. So while we don't want to change the standards, we do know that what we accept as meaningful work for a particular standard can look different based on how a child is experiencing the English language. So there are many ways that we need to look into supporting our students, and that is one way, is to protect our core time by pushing supports in versus pulling kids out. But then beyond the core times, you always want to have sessions and processes and procedures where students can go receive counseling services and supports if they need them, where they can have more time with boots on the ground, work around supporting their individual needs. And I spoke specifically to English language learners because that's what your question asked. But I do want to say this is the same thing with our students who have special needs. We don't want to be pulling them out during core time. We want teachers or support staff to push in, but then there are some non-core times where we pull them out so they can have one on small group or more time with the teacher who specializes in exceptional learning needs.
Can I say a question for the The MMSD website states, we believe that resources are critical to education and are responsible for the equity and effectiveness of them. As the 2022-2023 school year, in the 4-year high school plan, the district has a graduation rate of 93% when it comes to neurotypical and able-bodied students, but a 63% rate when it comes to disabled students or students with IEPs. That's a 15% decline. Given that the district believes, say, that all resources such as IEPs, 504, adaptive curriculum, building accessibility, etc., are critical for an effective and equitable education, how do you plan to improve that graduation rate, as well as enforce disability and accessibility protocols?
So there again, I do need to ask you one question. Are you talking about a 4-year graduation rate? Okay.
4-year, not this.
Okay, all right, because we do know that students who have individualized
The
education
21
program,
program, yeah.
yes, that they can stay longer. if they
Yes.
So choose.
From what I know, that program's worked out pretty well. So my focus is the career plan.
Okay. What I would say is there again, we need to have access and opportunity for all of our students to be able to receive the credits that they need to go on to graduation. And if we find situations, and trust me, there are those situations, if we find situations where students have done their absolute best and they're meeting the indicators, we need to make sure that there are processes and procedures, sometimes we call them waivers, for students to be able to graduate. If not, if we can't meet the needs of graduation pathways for our students based on legislative laws, then we need to rally our legislators, and I have no problem with doing that, to talk about the fact that while we set a bar high and we want everybody to reach that bar, there are some realistic reasons for why some students may need extra time, or why some of our students have alternative routes, but can demonstrate that they are proficient and ready to graduate. And it may not always be through an assessment or a test or what have you, but we want to make sure that we're erring on the safety of our children and that they contribute to their school environment, evidence and information. Now, having said that, they have to have access and opportunity to rigorous course offerings. They have to, because if you don't do that, you're never gonna even have a chance to be able to meet the required needs for graduation. We need to have alternative methods for students to be able to be supported. It could be in the evening time. I've been in school districts where we had school that's in the evening time, because for some of our students, they're able to actually contribute more in the evening than they are in the daytime. It could be medication related or what have you. So we just need to think outside the box and don't think of school as the traditional way that we've always thought of it, 9 to 5 or 8 to 4. But what is it that we really need to do to support the needs of our learners and diverse needs. So that's how I would do that.
Thank you very much.
Aiden, are you talking?
Yes.
Okay. I can't hear you, but I can't hear you. You got the one. Yes.
So Madison is an exceptionally diverse place. As a leader, please share a time when you were faced with a hard ethical decision with pressures from multiple sides. Okay. How did you navigate the situation? What was the outcome? And looking back, what would you have done differently?
Put me in the hot seat with that question. How about that? I will tell you, that I'm going to use the word equity. In many districts, we talk about equity. And I think that if I were to ask each of you around this table, what does equity mean to you, you probably would all come up with a different answer. So what I would say is that there's been a time where I've been in districts where they quote unquote said that they either didn't understand equity or equity from their perspective was not quote unquote fair, that it should be equality. And so what I did, how I helped the situation was to go out and talk about what does it mean when we talk about equity. And I would give examples. For example, I would say, let's think about equity in the cafeteria. We all like to eat, right? And we all need to eat. So let's think about equity in the cafeteria. If peanut butter and jelly is what's on the menu, and that's the only thing that's on the menu, but I have a peanut allergy, does that mean then that I can't eat? Equality would say that, well, peanut butter and jelly is on the menu, you gotta eat. But equity would say, that's not nourishing to my body. In fact, it hurts my body. Therefore, I need something different than a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Give me a bologna sandwich, or give me a salad, or something like that. That's equity played out in the cafeteria. I'll give you another example. I remember having a conversation with a gentleman who talked about he didn't believe in equity. He felt like, you're giving people unfair advantages or things of that nature. And I explained, well, we all experience equity on a day-to-day basis. For example, I said, you have glasses on your face, take your glasses off. He looked at me. And then when I explained to him, now put your glasses back on. Equity says that you need glasses because you need to be able to experience the world through a view where you can actually see what's going on. I didn't have on glasses because at the time I did not need glasses. And when I was able to explain to him that equity is not this scary taboo word, equity is really just about making sure that we give children or making sure that we give anybody what they need to be successful. And then I was better able to explain that.
Has committed to achieving 100% renewable energy by 2040. Please share your experience with similar climate initiatives and implementation. How you will apply the experience for MMSD achieve their sustainable objectives. So that's a great question. And I know you all are passionate about sustainability. I watched some of your board meetings where I saw some of the students out talking about that. What I will tell you is that in districts that I've been in, we've always had energy managers who monitor our energy use in our buildings. We put out solar panels in various districts where we are able to toxins into the community, if you will. We've had, and most of you are familiar with this, we've been in, I've been in districts where we've had single streamline recycling programs where each building has a way to recycle. And in some of those buildings where they were actually able to get money, we've been able to recycle and do better for our earth. We've had partnerships like with Duke and Power Energy, where students compete to create streamlined processes of how they would solve a problem that's related to energy conservation. We have our AP environmental classes, and I'm sure you probably have some of these as well, where we take on real life situations and we talk about how we could do better with energy and management of energy. And, in our buildings, we've had teams of students. Wonder what you do.
of students who, they're like the energy patrols. They make sure that the lights are off, the overhead projectors, you know, they draw a lot of energy, right? Where we have times and switches for things to go off. So I've worked in various districts where we've done a lot of things. I would want to come into Madison and first of all, listen to you, talk to you, find out what's important to you. What are you already doing? And how can I get in and help and support? I realize that some things, there's always money behind some things, but I think where there's a will, there's a way, and that collaboratively we can work together. You are the future, and if energy is important to you, it should be important to all of us. So my question to you is, if I am selected as your new superintendent, what is one thing that you believe is most important for me to know about you as students in your environment that you believe I would need to support?
Does anybody else want to answer? If not, I can take it away.
Thank you, yeah, Trevor over here wants to answer.
So, over the past year, MSD is, experiencing more, curriculum in our school. And there's no, like, resources for them to have, like, accessible interpreters. How, accessible, like interpreters and.
So I've had to do that before. In my past, I've been a director of exceptional learning, so a director of students with special needs. And we rattle the bushes all across the country to find DHA licensed support staff. And they typically work with you almost on a one-on-one basis. Or we have times where they work with other students, but I would rattle the bushes to find somebody who can work with our students. It's important that you have the resources you need as far as if you need other we would want to make sure that you have that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much for being here and thank you very much for participating in our student interview panel. We've enjoyed learning about you and your experiences and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Well, I appreciate you all and thank you so much for allowing me to have time with you because your voice does matter. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Stokes.